at least we now know that it's going to be recording from the correct place.
One time through. We'll do it live.
Fuck it, we'll do it live. What's that from?
Some news anchor was going to broadcast, and it's like, fuck it, we'll do it live.
I've heard that, I've heard it before. I just have no idea.
Yeah.
I don't remember where that, or ever heard where that came from.
I mean, it's all around production at this point, but yeah.
Is it?
It is.
Oh, good.
Yeah, you could literally mention it to anybody on a production set, and they'd be like, fuck it, let's do it live. Or we'll do it live.
I'll ask Marissa about it.
She'll know. Immediately, she'll know.
Will she?
Oh, yeah.
Will she?
If she doesn't know, I'm going to have to switch to breaded pizza rolls instead of toasted raviolis.
Breaded pizza rolls are already breaded. And already come pre-sauced.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's start off on that because you said something about that.
Oh, so Trader Joe's has these toasted raviolis.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did like them a lot better than the ones that I got from that restaurant.
Okay.
Air fried them. They were crispy. The inside, you could still taste the pasta and the cheese. It was perfect, but it was still dry as all hell.
Did it come with a sauce?
No sauce.
Well, that's the problem.
Yeah.
Look, I mean, here's the hard part with stuff like that is no matter what, you'll always have the defense of, well, it's not the same from where it comes from.
Right.
Right. It's the same shit that I pull with actually I don't really pull it that much. I think.
What? Which?
About like pizza.
Oh. I don't think you do.
I don't think I ever claim, and I could be wrong here. If I'm a hypocrite, I'm a hypocrite, that like Chicago pizza is superior. My only claim on that is that pineapple doesn't belong on pizza.
I think that's the only thing you've ever said.
Yeah. Because I've had good pizza, like pretty good pizza out here.
Yeah.
I still argue Domino's is the best California pizza, as far as I'm aware.
How dare you?
Well.
Oh my God. Well, we haven't had our pizza episode yet, so it'll happen. And at which point we'll also have the turtle on to talk comedy.
Talk comedy.
Yeah.
Though apparently, technically she should probably be on this one, but
she should probably be on the intro at least, or at least we'll get some major feedback if she ever listens to it in 2025.
Yeah. Just keep pushing it back.
Yeah. At this point, yeah.
We're at one episode a year.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah. She says she's catching up, but I feel like the catch up is like 15 minutes every 5 days. So, yeah.
That's fair. These tend to be longer in length episodes.
Well, even some of the shorter ones.
Sure, we have a couple.
Yeah.
They're there.
And she hasn't listened to them.
They're there.
Yeah.
So what did you want to talk about today?
I want to talk about the great and tried and successful Dave Chapelle.
Okay.
And his recent special, and how it's still getting the same backlash it got from
Sticks and
Stones.
Okay.
Yeah. Did you watch it last weekend, like we said we would?
Yes.
Okay, good. I also watched the Anthony Jeselnik one, and I could
that's wild, isn't it?
Not stop laughing.
Fire in the maternity ward.
And you were right, because there's things that we were like, you're going to be like, I'm about to laugh at this, and I probably shouldn't. And that thought crossed my mind with a handful of jokes.
Like almost all of the jokes.
And I'm pretty sure I chuckled, and I was just like, oh, no, I shouldn't. Like, I said it out loud. I was like, I shouldn't be laughing at this, but I am.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
He got some heat for that. That one came out, I forget what year it was. It was a couple years ago.
Yeah. I think it was 19. Maybe? 18 or 19?
18 seems right.
From when I looked at the thing, yeah.
Yeah, I think because that comedy is like so on brand for him, like it's unsurprising.
Yeah.
But I still think he got a little backlash off of that, especially
sure.
towards the end with the whole abortion clinic.
Oh my God.
Did you lose weight?
Yeah. I should get her a succulent. Something she will also never have to take care of. It's like, oh my God.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
Yeah.
It's funny. It's super funny.
Yeah.
I end up listening because I haven't listened to it in a while, so I listened to it on my way home that night.
Man, I'm telling you, like, yeah, 15% of that special, I was like, I shouldn't be laughing at this, but I'm dying.
Perfect.
I am dying.
That's like the whole thing. That's like his like whole gist is like.
It was really good.
He's very much like he's a very like punchline or like set up punchline right? Misdirect, etc. And even like calls it out. And at one point in time, he's like, "This is what I call a misdirection."
Yeah, he loves to do
like
it
that.
too. He loves to do it. Actually, Joe was supposed to see him a month or two ago, and him and his friends, they went to a show. It was like a last minute show or a secret show, and he had to show up and whatever. They bought tickets. They went to the place, and they were gone for like 3-4 hours. And then Joe comes back, and I was like, "Dude, how was the show?" He's like, "He didn't even fucking show."
Oh,
I was like, "Oh," I was so sad for him after watching that special.
Yeah.
Even more so. I was just like, damn, dude, that sucks. Because Joe was telling me, he's like, it's one of his favorite comics. And
Oh, really?
for him not to show up.
That sucks.
Yeah. Yeah, it ripped his little heart out.
yeah. Anthony Jeselnik is funny. I like him a lot. He, it's yeah. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. Watch it if you get a chance. If you're into dark humor. If you're not into dark humor, this is not for you.
It's definitely not for you.
Yeah.
For sure. It's very much, offensive.
Yes.
Okay, so what about the Chapelle special did you want to chat about?
I guess the trans community topic that was going on, specifically with him versus the trans community. Mm-hmm. In the previous special, he explained how he is transphobic. He's trying to understand it, but he's just set in his ways, and he makes jokes at it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. If you've seen it, you understand what I'm saying. If you haven't seen it, again, dark humor. If it's for you, go ahead, watch it. If it's not, leave it alone. So following that up, he comes out to say in this one, again, spoilers. If you haven't seen it, probably stop now.
Yeah.
But if you have seen it, you'll know what we're talking about. Again, spoilers. He goes on to say that he met a lady. I forgot her name.
I can't remember.
But how she was trans and she was at his shows, and how she praised him, or not praised him, but admired him. And she even told him that he was her comic hero. Mm-hmm. And her being trans, he thought that he would have offended her. And her response was like, it's comedy. Like, you're not attacking me. It's just a joke. And the fact that he was able to build a relationship with her, goes above and beyond what he was saying in the past show about how, yes, he's still transphobic because he's trying to understand or grasp the concept of it. But, the growth for Dave Chapelle to have that initial conversation, initial backlash, and then build a relationship with this woman shows leaps and bounds of personal growth. And then come the end of the story, we find out she ends up killing herself because she was dragged and criticized and belittled on the internet by the LGBT community. And I think that part was so gut-wrenching, because you could just see the pain in his eyes, and the way he tells that story is, he even says, he's like, I lost one of my people, like his friend, someone he considered a friend. And that was just like so upsetting. And I think more so, not only, along the lines with this special, but I like the power of words, and how you and I always say words are important. The power of words, especially via social media, where there's, for the most part, no boundaries. That shit affects people like hard. And then to get it from your own people is even worse.
Yeah.
That's tough.
Yes. I mean, so a couple things on it. Like, I really, really enjoyed the special.
Yeah.
I find Dave Chapelle a very funny person. And I think I enjoy storytelling, as I think we said on the last one.
Yeah.
So his the thing that in addition to what I enjoy about Chapelle's overall stand-up is that he has there's a lot of, I mean, most comedy tends to be, well, I shouldn't say most, but a lot of comedy tends to be social commentary in some capacity, right? And I think we said this last time too, where comedy can often be a way to work through the understanding of a situation that you're like a situation.
Yeah.
And so to make note, I think when Chapelle says that he's transphobic, I think he's saying that very tongue in cheek,
Right.
Because that's the label that's been given him.
Right. You're right. Like the media describes Dave Chapelle as transphobic.
Yes. Right. And that was, he kind of, there's a lot of like points that he hits on very early on to the special when he talks about this lady that was following him from his car.
Mm-hmm.
And, as an aside, this is comedy. So we can't take everything that's being said, all of these stories as facts.
Right.
Some of it might be true, but we have to understand that there's definitely embellishments going on for the sake of storytelling and for a laugh, right? Painting these pictures.
And he even says that in one of the setups for the jokes. He goes, "I'm exaggerating, but you get the gist."
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but going back with the lady in the car, right? The thing that immediately was that he like kind of set the tone for, and this was kind of the tone for everything.
Yeah.
Was that he was like, she's like, "You're that like homophobic or whatever."
Yeah.
Like comedian Dave Chapelle, and he goes, "Oh, what have you seen? Have you come to my shows? Did you watch me on Netflix? Did you see me in person? Have we had a conversation?
Yeah.
Or have you just been reading headlines?" And the through line through all of the stand up is this idea that that people are constantly regurgitating the same like talking points from essentially the same like article constantly being written about him.
100%.
So that's kind of like the point at which he's trying to make. And then the remainder, the rest of the special minus kind of the story at the very end was kind of highlighting on the fact that there is like all of these different situations that he kind of runs himself through or finds himself in, where he's kind of like kind of battling this like kind of false narrative, if you will. Shit, I forgot where I was going with that. But essentially just kind of battling this like this false narrative of like people who have like don't really know or understand him, but are taking things as is.
Right.
And where I was going to go. But anyway, so you kind of have all of that, but I think the way the defense of it's just a joke is not a good example.
Right.
I think that's a horrible defense because, and again, I don't think we're repeating ourselves a little bit here, but lowbrow comedy, easy comedy, or new comics. And I'm no expert on this, so I'm an outsider looking in on a lot.
Yeah.
But like I've watched like open mics before. It's fucking rough, right? Because you don't know what you're doing. I don't know what I'm doing, but anyway, point is, but the point is that like when you're new at anything, you're not gonna
struggle.
It's a struggle. You're not going to be good at it. You're gonna make mistakes. But point is that like there's this like low bar of entry like humor that sometimes gets made for like say like new comics and stuff like that. But I don't think Chapelle is far past that. Like he's far past this like lowbrow comedy, and so. I think one of the like kind of looking at the special is from a lot of the articles and kind of the commentary that I've read about like people talking about it. It seems like the point largely was missed.
Yeah. And you even made that post before we watched this. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. I think the point was missed. And I think there's, before I get into like why I can understand why people would be upset, the point that I think at least I got from it was kind of twofold. One, at one point he said, "I'm jealous," and the reason being that he is having this kind of jealousy and why he feels like he can make jokes about the LGBT community, which in large is why he argues that he's not punching down, he's technically punching up.
Yeah,
is because. If we look at like the African like this last year has been a prime, many years of prime examples, but let's say just for now, that if we look at the African American community, we are still at this weird like turning. I don't even know if it's a turning point, if that's the right word to use, but this kind of like impasse where we are still fighting and arguing for essentially racial equality.
Right.
And this is over the course of several hundred years.
Right.
And what feels like, from at least like Chapelle, for example, is that in the span of 60 years, the LGBT community seems to have gone from persecuted to heavily protected.
Right.
And heavily protected in a manner of like acceptance and laws and everything in between. Mm-hmm. So there seems to, I guess, from the argument from Chapelle's stand-up, is that there is this wild disparity in when we're looking at like quote unquote protect classes from like a racial standpoint versus like the LGBT standpoint.
Right.
And that I mean, he even makes a joke. He's like, apparently, he's like, we might have ended slavery like 100 years earlier if we were just throwing parades and booty shorts and oiling ourselves up.
Yes, yes.
Right. He makes all those like Martin Luther King kind of jokes.
Yeah, yeah. And then he in another one that he made along that same line of it was he says, I don't have a problem with gay people. I don't have a problem with trans people. He's like, my issue has always been with white people.
Yeah, yeah.
And in that sentence, it's not he hates white people. It's the fact that white people are still looked as the higher class versus black people. And so when gays or trans are using that defense, like or like what he mentioned, like when they're going into defense mode, it's like, oh, all of a sudden we have to protect him because he's gay. It's like, no, he's like, I'm not attacking them because they're gay. He's like, I'm attacking them because they're using their privilege to defend themselves at this point.
Yeah, well, the restaurant argument, the restaurant part was an interesting one. He's like, you're gay until you need to be white.
Yes,
and that was, I was like, ooh, like that's interesting.
Yeah.
That's an interesting look, and I think the part that makes things, I think what makes, in large, I think what to a certain degree what makes Chapelle very interesting is because it's I think he takes a very nuanced look at kind of this like society, right? Comedy, in a way that I think makes people like laugh, but also ponder.
Yeah.
Some of it can be very uncomfortable. If you watched, so he had Sticks and Stones, but then following that he had the Equanimity, right, which was just kind of like him sitting down talking, and that thing was like that was a real conversation.
Yeah, that was less comedy and more.
I mean, it was almost no comedy.
Yeah, that was more eye-opening. Like, hey, I have something to say. Like,
yeah, and I thought that was like there were some really interesting things about that throughout that entire thing. And so I think sometimes people get lost in the sauce when we talk about comedy because it appears to be making light of a serious situation, and everybody is going to have things that matter more to them than anybody else. And so we feel those things, like we feel whatever we stand for, right? So if we're saying in this case, right, we're talking about like trans rights, trans equality, that type of stuff. If you are trans, or if you are a very vocal, very strong ally, then that's going to be on the hierarchy of like things that you care about. That's going to be very, very high on that list.
Yeah.
And so you care about it more than, say, Joe below.
Yeah.
So if you were to make a comment or make a joke about it, then that is a direct, can be perceived as a very much direct attack.
Absolutely.
Though that might not be the case. And so I think it's interesting because I've also, sorry, do you have anything to
No, keep going.
Yeah. And so I think that's very interesting because I have friends who have made comments about stuff like this where, their comment is, if you are not trans or struggle or going through, some sort of like similar situation as this, I don't give a shit about what you find offensive or not. Mm-hmm. And I agree with that statement, but I think that's coming from the wrong place because I don't think any point at any point within this is that we are battling whether or not things are considered offensive.
Yeah.
Because offense is something that is like very specific to an individual, right? What I might find offensive, you might not, and vice versa.
Yeah.
And actually, this is part of what I was writing down earlier, because when we talk about offense, there's a quote from Jordan Peterson, love him or hate him, doesn't matter, that I thought was really interesting from an interview that he had with Kathy Newman. And so they were talking about like freedom of speech and how to talk. And do you know who Jordan Peterson is?
No.
Jordan Peterson, in short, is a clinical psychologist. He got kind of his big notoriety, or not notoriety, but he kind of had his come up, right, if you will, was from this debate in Canada several years ago, because he was debating about a certain legislation that was mandating essentially the use of pronouns. And so he was kind of arguing from a sense that that's like the act of compelled speech is kind of unconstitutional. Canada's, I don't know all of Canada's rules and laws and stuff like that, but anyway, that was kind of where he was getting at, because as far as I'm aware, Canada at the point as at that point, and I don't know if still now, doesn't necessarily have like a freedom of speech law in the books, right? Kind of written to their like constitution.
Got it.
So that came up, and that's kind of how he kind of became a little bit more well known. He's written a couple books at that point, been on Joe Rogan a bunch, like et cetera, gone on tours, whatever. So anyway, that's who that is. So they were doing this interview with Kathy Newman, and she said, why should your freedom of and it applies, which is interesting. She goes, why should your freedom of speech trump a trans person's right not to be offended? And his response is, he said, because in order to be able to think, you have to risk being offensive. Look at and so during this entire point of this conversation, it was a very weird interview, because he would like say something, she would like repeat it, but kind of twist it in a way that was kind of in like as if he was like being mean, and he was like, that's not what I'm saying. Like, you're really misconstruing my words, for like an hour straight.
What was this on?
I don't remember I think it was it was British.
Oh, okay.
It was a British show.
I was gonna say, if it's 60 minutes, it sounds about right.
No. Yeah, I think it's something in the UK. I can't fully remember, but Kathy Newman, if you look up Kathy Newman, or Jordan Peterson interview, it's one of the first ones that pop up, and you can watch it. And he goes, so he says, I mean, look at this conversation we're having right now. You're certainly willing to risk offending me in the pursuit of truth. Why should you have the right to do that? This has been rather uncomfortable. And so she responds, well, I'm very glad that I put you on the spot. And he's like, well, you get my point. You're doing what you should what you should do, which is digging a bit to see what the hell is going on. And that is what you should do. But you're exercising your freedom of speech to certainly risk offending me, and that's fine. More power to you as far as I'm concerned. So the idea of like, when we talk about the idea of offense, is kind of, offense only comes from something to be offended, right? Getting a little philosophical here. So you have to risk offense in order to be offended.
Right.
So like it's a two-way street. Like,
it's a give and take. Yeah,
you have to go through that. And so I think like, when we're talking with like the Chapelle thing, and we're talking about like whether or not it's offensive, it can 100% be offensive. There's no question about that.
Absolutely.
And for the people that are arguing that, there are people that are arguing that, you shouldn't be offended by this, it's just jokes or whatever. Like that's too like low level thinking.
Yes.
Of trying to defend whatever point you're trying to defend. Because I'm not here to defend Chapelle, nor am I here to defend whether or not you find it offensive. Because if you do, you do.
Yeah.
I can't change that.
Yeah, you're not going to change anybody's mind.
Like, I'm not trying to either.
Yeah.
Nor should you, right? Like, you could acknowledge it's offensive. So,
or even you don't even have to acknowledge. Like, you can acknowledge that it offends the person who is being offended. It may not necessarily offend you, but you have to acknowledge that, hey, they're offended by it. It doesn't affect me the same way, so I just have to be cognizant or aware of that.
Yeah, right. Like, trying to think. Yeah, like, where is this at? I wrote a bunch of notes. No, whatever. That's fine. But I so anyway, there's that when we're talking about like offense. But as for like the backlash for it, like, have you read anything about like why people are like not liking it, or they want it to be like taken down, et cetera, et cetera?
I've been reading a couple of headlines and a couple of articles, and I'll get like 5 minutes in, and it's about just right off the top, it's just bashing or taking out of context words that he's used. And I just stopped reading the article because I'm like you said, you missed the point. You're taking specific things out of context, using it as a headline grabber, and then your article is pretty much null and void at that point.
Mm-hmm.
I'll get there, and I'm just like, you know what? I don't want to bother reading into this because I saw the special. Reading the first couple paragraphs, I know this person didn't watch it all the way.
Yep.
And that's it. I just I don't want to do it.
Yeah, that seems to be the larger thing that I've noticed as well, is that a lot of the articles or some of the videos being less about the videos actually, more of the written words seems to be coming from a perspective of haven't watched it, just mad.
Yeah.
You big mad.
Someone told me that he said this.
That's kind of what it feels like.
Yeah.
Right? Like that you're playing a little bit of a telephone game.
Exactly.
Because it's usually the same two talking points that I kind of heard. So the first one is, and I hate that I can't remember his friend's name. You want to look it up?
I'll look it up while you talk.
But when they were talking about her, they were like, well, that's one person that's just anecdotal. You can't use that one person as the device or the like figurehead for an entire community. And I agree. And I think I could easily argue the point that Chapelle could have missed the mark a little bit with that one, because it felt like he was kind of arguing from, what's her name?
Daphne Dorman.
Daphne. I was like, I think it's a D.
Yeah.
But so you can kind of argue a little point of like, okay, I feel like he is arguing from the perspective of a singular person now speaking for an entire group, right? And you can't do that because people are fucking wildly complex.
Yep.
So it doesn't work to use like a singular anecdotal reasoning behind it. But that aside, I think the point that he was making when he was talking about her is that it changed his mind, because his perspective was that she shouldn't enjoy this. She shouldn't like his comedy. And because back then when he was doing this, he was a newer comic saying some wild shit.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so that's kind of like point one. Point two, and the larger one that I can understand a little bit more concern about, was when he started talking about J.K. Rowling and like the TERFs.
Oh yeah.
So that I can get behind. I can kind of get a little bit more behind, because I feel like, because there's a lot of, when we so for example, and this will make sense in a second. So when we had like when Trump was president, and there was kind of right before the whole the whole insurrection, there was a lot of news going around and talking about the Proud Boys.
Mm-hmm.
Before that moment, have you ever heard of the Proud Boys?
I've never heard it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right? It's an online thing. It's an internet thing. And there's this weird thing that's starting to happen where like internet is starting to slip into the mainstream. Like it's little bits like that. Right? So I was having conversations about the Proud Boys with my mom, and she was like, this blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, okay. Like, let's talk about it, because you don't know what it is.
Yeah.
And like Marissa, same way, because she's not an internet person as I am. So when we also have kind of the TERFs starting to pop up, it's a frustrating part, because that's an internet thing that is now going to be seeped into their mainstream, and now people are going to kind of know about it, and it's a very much arguably fringe beliefs.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to dive into what it is, because I don't feel like I should platform that.
No.
So if you want to look it up, feel free to look it up. But
watch the special and then look it up, and it'll have context.
Yeah, I mean, yes. I would read a little bit more, because he does water it down a little bit.
Yeah, a lot.
And again, this is where I can start seeing like, okay, yeah, I can get it.
Yeah.
But those were kind of the two main points that get brought up, at least from any of the articles that I've read about it.
Right. Yeah.
Vulture, by the way, did one I wish I could remember the writer, but did a very good write up on it, that I thought was very, very well thought out, from like a very good argumentative standpoint, as well as kind of like the pros cons of how this is, and ultimately, yeah. So. But those 2 points seem to be the main thing that I hear about, and then the rest of it is just kind of thrown in with this whole just a lot of like transphobia.
Yeah,
and that seems to be it.
Yeah, that I would say that's the majority of it. Just those two talking points, and Dave Chapelle hates trans people.
Yes, And so one of the things that I was kind of reading a little bit before this, or kind of listening to before this was, there's a lady that was talking about cancel culture, and it's a longer video. I'll link it in the video, in the description because I think it's a really interesting take, to kind of think about from like a little bit of a philosophical concept of like cancel culture. But there's a couple main takeaways from it. And I think one of the interesting parts about it is that was said was like, that we treat people with fame and power as if they're different, and that we need to stop treating talent as if it's synonymous with character. And so, Siri, go away.
Yeah, what the hell?
How does that keep happening?
I have we didn't even say her name.
Anyway, but that we need to, from a societal standpoint, we look at fame and we look at fame, we look at notoriety, and we give them power.
Yes.
To a certain degree.
Yes.
And so with that also then comes treating them differently, right? We have this like, and if you want to argue societal concepts, then, we're kind of giving that to them and putting them on a higher pedestal or a higher hierarchical standing than ourselves.
We call it celebrity status.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. And there's jokes about that.
Yeah.
So, but I think one of the important thing is like, we need to not do that. And I think a lot of people do that, right? This is kind of like one of the issues it's the through line issue that is happening with like Joe Rogan, for example, is people are like almost like canonizing him, and not realizing that he's just a fucking person.
Yeah.
And so he's just a person. People are fucking complex and have like an egregious amount of nuance to them. And so, but we're putting people on pedestals, and we need to realize that like their talent is not synonymous with their character. You also have to realize that for Chapelle in this regard, the stage person and the real person are different people, right? Just like an actor playing a role that's a different person. We can't say like Chris Pratt, like what Star-Lord did is wrong. Fuck Chris Pratt.
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Right? Like you'd be like, hold on. I don't understand.
Star-Lord shouldn't have squeezed that rat and threw it away.
Yeah. Right. Or whatever you like thing you want to get up like all like hot and bothered by. So there has to be the separation of like the talent and then the character. And so we have kind of that point. And the interesting thing is that when a lot of times when we're looking at this piece with, or the arguments with Chapelle, is that we're damning his character, not his ideas.
Yeah.
At least from what I've seen. And it's so much easier to condemn a person than their ideas, because oftentimes when we're trying to attack ideas, that in turn makes us self-reflect into seeing like how they affect us to a point, and then also how these ideas can be like embedded within the quote unquote systems that are a part of it, as well as much as like how much of a role we play into it. So I feel like people tend to go towards character first because it's so much easier to deal with, without having to then battle with probably your own ideas.
Right.
We talk about transphobia, we talk about homophobia, like all of the obias or isms, and I'd be hard pressed to find any person who can confidently say at some point in time in their lives haven't said some shit.
Right.
Right. When I was growing up, it was wildly acceptable to be like, that's gay.
Yeah.
Tom Segura makes a joke about it. He's like, he was like, can't say gay anymore. He's like, damn it.
Yeah.
Right. Right. He's like, that's gay. Right. But, and in all fairness, I agree with that. Right. I'm cool with it. But I'd be a hypocrite to say like I never said that.
Oh, 100%.
Right?
Yeah.
Like you're right. And I think a lot of people need to like in situations like this where we're talking about cancel culture, I think we need to self-reflect a little bit and realize that like our past isn't perfect. And if you are not a perfect person, then you also probably should give a little bit of credence to accepting the fact that the people that you are damning are also people.
Right.
And they make mistakes. Like life is a series of trial and error. We have to get it wrong in order to get it right. And so they stop me at any point in time, please.
Keep going.
I feel like I talk too much sometimes. Well, actually almost every time.
all the times.
I was telling Marissa this, and I was like, it really bugs me. I'm like, it kind of starts to bug me a little bit because I like catch myself rambling, and I'm just like, fuck, am I talking too much?
No, not at all.
Like,
not at all.
do I need to I need to pass the buck and like let Eric talk more? But I guess again, stop me, right? Please, at any point in time. But like, we need to be cautious about casting stones or throwing stones, because I think in reality, and especially if you're a person of the internet, then we pretty much all live in glass houses.
Not only the internet, of the last 10, 20 years. I mean, like you said, there's things that are not openly accepted anymore, like saying this is gay or that's gay, right? Like that's just one example. There's plenty out there where you're, again, to take offense, you have to be open to offense. There's just so much out there that people get offended by, and we joke about it here and there.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's mind numbing.
Well, and I think it's fine. Like, there's stuff that I see that's offensive to me. Like,
you avoid it, right? Like, or let's say there's a conversation happening a table away from you. You hear something offensive. You're not going to jump in and be like, hey guys, I don't think you should talk about this. Or are you going to be the person who's more like, you know what? That's not my conversation. It's not affecting who I'm with. We'll just walk away.
Largely. I tend to be a little less confrontational.
I'm with you. I don't mind confrontation, but if it's not directly affecting me in the moment, I'm not going to bother with it.
I think some of it is a little bit case dependent.
Yeah.
Like, if someone's being super loud, or I don't know, that hypothetical is really hard to play.
It's all case dependent.
Yeah. So I don't know. Like, I'm unlikely to just overhear something and then like immediately jump to it.
Yeah.
And part of that is because context is a very important piece.
Right.
I probably have no idea what the fuck is going on. Right. So I can jump into something and it would be like, I could, hypothetically, I jump in and be like, hey, whatever you just said is like crazy.
Yeah.
And they'd be like, hold on.
Yeah.
Who the fuck are you? 1, 2. Then it's like, well, this is what we were talking about.
Yeah. You walk right into the lion's den.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, people are fucking insane. So like the last thing I want to do is just like hop into some random conversation with somebody who's got like unhinged and like trying to like beat me up.
Yeah.
Not interested in that. So there's like this little self-protection thing that's happening with that too.
Absolutely.
There's a time and a place, in my opinion.
Of course.
But going back a little bit about like, talking about glass houses, I think it's interesting to look at, we can look at almost all prolific activists throughout history. And if we were to like take a peek behind the scenes, and some of it we know about, then their life,
she hates us.
Then their life can be viewed as like wildly chaotic or counter to what they're preaching. But I think that doesn't make people like hypocrites, right? You can say something and be, to a certain degree, you can kind of say something and kind of live this chaotic lifestyle or something behind the scenes, but still champion a cause or champion a good cause, ideally. But that doesn't necessarily make these people hypocrites. It doesn't make us hypocrites. It just makes us human.
Yeah.
And it makes us human in the idea of like, again, going back to the complexities of us, is that like we can be wrong and still progress. We can be wrong. We can have faults, and we can still get better. We can learn and grow from that. And I think that's a really, really important piece that we have to keep in mind. Is it tiresome? 100%. Does everybody want to like be the person? Does anybody really want to be the person that's going to sit down and have the conversation with somebody who's saying some wild shit and try and like change their mind? Probably not. Like, not everyone wants to do that. No one wants to do that every day because there's a lot of stupid people out there.
Yeah.
So, again, picking battles is kind of an interesting thing, but like, again, we have to battle ideas, not the people.
Yeah.
Because, behind the scenes, when I talk about like with my family or other friends that have like said some shit in the past, like we have a relationship where I feel comfortable enough to be like, hold on, like let's parse through this. Like, because I don't think you are a bad person, but I think you have a bad idea. And we need to get to the root of where this idea comes from, and let's figure out like how to change that viewpoint a little bit. Because I think, the other part to it is like with that in mind, like for me, for example, a different culture, a different upbringing, like different circumstances could easily have turned me into the person that I dislike now.
Yeah.
And I like, that's it.
Yeah.
That's a really wild thing to conceptualize, is how easily it could be that like I could have grown up in a different part of this country, and I could easily have become a different person.
Yeah.
I could have had different parents that could have made me a different person. Like there's so many factors into what makes a person who they are, and especially who they are at the moment that you're speaking with them. So if you don't know all of this stuff, then like to just immediately bastardize them is kind of wild.
Yeah.
Now, obviously there's certain things that I'm not going to necessarily say, but there's obviously going to be egregious, like say acts that are going to be like kind of irredeemable, right? To a certain degree, like an action is one thing. And I think, calls to action are kind of fall into those same lines as well. But going back when we're with like Chapelle and stuff, I think a lot of this is kind of this parsing through the ideas and trying to understand what the fuck is going on. Because again, things have changed fast and drastically. I'm very fortunate enough to have some friends and some very smart friends that I can ask questions, and I can ask questions in a way because because they know I am trying to understand and not going to get yelled at for it. But that's a legitimate concern when you start asking about, like, say, trans stuff.
Yeah.
It's not weird, but it's new to me. And it's hard. Can sometimes be hard to understand because my life has brought me up I grew up in a life that led me down kind of a singular or binary path in this regard.
Right.
And so it takes time to learn and to understand. And I want to be able to ask questions. And thankfully I have people that I can ask questions with, who are far more educated than I am, to be able to like reason it out to myself. Now, that being said, even if I don't understand, I'm also not treating people like pieces of shit because I don't understand.
Yeah.
So that's a separate thing, right? In its own right. Like obviously, treat everybody like with respect and dignity.
Yeah.
But behind the scenes, like I want to know. I'm trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
And that's life. That's all of us are trying to figure shit out, not just one particular issue.
Yeah. And change is scary, and I think that's why people initially act the way they do, whether they, act out or act not accordingly, I guess, because change is scary. It's something new. Like you said, for you and me both, pretty much a linear lifestyle of like not having anyone or any experience with specifically the trans culture. It's just like when it comes in, you're like, oh, this is new. I don't know how to react. I don't know how to act. I need to process.
Yeah.
And the better we get at that, as we get older, I would hope as we get older, we get better at it. We're not saying stupid shit, or we're not acting or reacting in a certain way. Like, oh,
Yeah.
Granted, like from experience, when I was younger, I didn't know anything about being gay. So when that came up, I was very much like, oh, gay. Like, what is that?
What?
Yeah. Now it's like, no, like I get it. I understand it. Like I have no problem with it. Trans is still one thing. I don't have anybody in my life that's trans. It wouldn't shock me. It wouldn't be upsetting or irritating. I would again go the same route. Like, okay, so can we sit and talk about this? Because I want to learn. I don't know anything about it. I like what went through your mind, like just all of that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, 100%. And again, I will always speak from. I will always try and speak from like a. That's not what I wanted to say. I'm grateful. I'm very grateful for a lot of the things that have happened, at least for me in my life, because I've been essentially blessed, if you want to use that word, with the opportunities to be able to try it, like to see, experience in certain ways the kind of like things outside of myself. I used to like bartend at a gay bar. That was like probably one of the best things that's ever happened to me, because not only did it like really familiarize myself you know, as a straight person, again, not really having a whole lot of like individual experiences and being like literally thrust into the mix.
Yeah.
Was like really interesting and really interesting because in a lot of ways of how I've been able to kind of like process. And I don't know how this is going to come across, and I hope it comes across in the sense of like appreciation, and like appreciation, at least for myself, for the people in my life that have been able to kind of like teach me, correct me, and allow me to kind of like fuck up but grow in a way to be able to understand. And so like those are the people in my life that I hold to such a high regard, because it could have been so easy for them to say fuck you and move on and either taint my view or like I would have potentially have never learned.
Right.
And so giving me the opportunity to like grow and learn kind of also then in turn gives me the compassion to a certain degree to be able to try and see where people come from, and then hopefully as people have done with me, to guide them into like maybe a better way of thinking. And so to like immediately just say fuck you and call it a day serves nobody any justice, serves nobody any like anything. It doesn't serve anything.
You're hitting an argument, you're hitting a wall in an argument, and that's not going to help. That's not going to help tear down the wall so that you guys can figure things out. That's not going to help on either side of that argument. It's just a wall.
Yeah. And I think that's a lot of like, I think that's a lot of what happens is like people get, and maybe not even a lot, but people get condemned for asking a question rather than just accepting.
Yeah.
And if there's any person that's been that is an atheist or has had their belief system, we'll say religion for this example, kind of shaken a little bit, you can probably relate a little bit to that, like that kind of concept of they're just relate to that concept. So, fuck, I lost my train of thought. Well, let's assume it was awesome.
You always have awesome thoughts.
Yeah, so good. So great. So good that I can't...
You get lost in them.
I can't finish my sentences. Shit, that's bad. Well, whatever. Anyway, I don't know where I was going with that, so hopefully it was awesome. I'll just move on. But anyway, that's kind of like where my thoughts are on a lot of that stuff. I think... Here, I'll say one more thing. So... For the people out there that say that they are seeking objective truths, or, well, I should say, I don't know if there is an objective truth, but let's say if you're seeking it, then you should welcome the idea of being wrong. Because if you do, then that means that you are going to be one step closer to finding the truth that you're seeking. That's science, right? Science, when we're talking about like research and stuff, like the whole idea is you have an idea, and whether it's right or wrong is neither good or bad. Actually, no, it's not bad. It's good because it either leads you into another direction to be able to retest a different concept, knowing that there's something that you don't have to worry about anymore. Or you get it right and you're like, hell yeah, one shot, let's go.
Yeah.
But the idea of like being wrong you shouldn't be afraid of that. You should be very accepting of the concept, because it only means that you can then ideally in turn be more right.
Right. Oh, and then to complement that, you can't be afraid to be wrong, but if you're having that conversation with somebody, that person needs to be accepting that, yes, you are wrong. Let me help you understand our point of view or a point of view or how this works.
Yeah.
You don't want to condemn them, like you were saying. Like it again, going back to it, it does nobody any good to shut down that conversation.
No, not at all. But anyway, point is not the point is. There's been a lot of points made. So I think we need to watch the Chapelle special with kind of two eyes. A critical eye of diving deeper than just the words being said, and kind of the the meanings behind it.
Yeah.
Right. You think of like a book, you're trying to like dive deeper into the meaning of what's being written. And then also from the non-critical eye and be like, this is fucking comedy. We can laugh at stuff.
Yeah.
Like we can laugh at uncomfortable things. There's a bunch of shit in that Anthony Jeselnik stand up that I'm just like, that's not the, I can appreciate that there's a joke. I know that joke is not for me.
Yeah.
And I can move on from it.
Yeah.
Not thinking that he's less of a person for willing to take the jump.
Yeah.
Right. Some of them hit, some of them miss. It's cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Right. There's another thing that I'm pretty sure Dave Chapelle has said, especially when it comes to his stand-up and when he receives backlash, is you guys hear me, but you're not listening.
Yes.
And you know, I think that falls on deaf ears, as the saying goes, especially for this, hearing and not listening. You hear the jokes, but you don't listen to the story behind the jokes. You just hear the punchline and you laugh, right? But if you're not laughing and you're getting offended, it's because you hear the words, but you're not listening to the story behind the words. Mm-hmm. And, you know, that's where Ryan and I are saying, you're missing the point. That's where he's saying you're missing the point of the story. You're missing the point of the punchline. Like, there's more to it than just me saying a joke or him just saying a joke. You have to listen to what he's saying.
Yeah. Yes. Right. I think that's the larger like story to be told. And again, going back to it, you're welcome to be offended.
Yeah.
Like you can not like it and you can tell people that you don't like it.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Right. I think
we're not going to tell you you're wrong.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
No one should tell you you're wrong.
Yeah. Like that's a wild concept.
Yeah. If you say 1 + 1 is 3, then we can say you're wrong. well, yeah. If we don't want to argue, we'll say you're right. But
yeah, you're like, sure, whatever. Yes, God damn it. What do you just said? Oh, no, you're not wrong. Fuck, man. That's why I need notes. I can't. Certain things I just can't ramble about.
I was saying listening and hearing, the difference.
Listening and hearing. Yeah. It's kind of like one of the. It's like the phrase, like it's not what you said, it's how you said it.
Yeah.
Almost, because what you like the how you said it implies things behind it.
Right.
And I think that's a big part. I mean, he blatantly says that, and he goes into like a rant. Well, not a rant, but he goes into like points that was made about the. Like in his Sticks and Stones one about like, you know, different situations. And he was like, I was talking about this and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And that was like, yeah, you have to look at it from like the 1,000-foot view, right? See it as a whole. And then that way you can kind of understand the individual parts and how it all kind of comes together.
Yeah.
But that was interesting. Oh, could you hear that?
No, I didn't hear that through the mic, but I heard it outside of my headphones.
Neck just exploded. Any on a lighter note? Yeah. Well, here. Anything else you want to kind of like make note on that?
More so, I guess, just the final touch. Just social media, guys. Like yes, it's a platform. It's open to everybody, but you got to remember, there are tons of people looking at that. And again, the right to offend or the right to be offended also has the inverse. So if you say something and someone counters your argument and you're offended, odds are they were offended by yours. And that's why you guys are having this conversation.
Yeah.
But have the conversation. Don't argue. Don't fight. Have an open, calm conversation,
which is hard to do,
which is very hard to do because
through social media
you have to accept that there are more than one opinions.
Or do what I did and just get rid of Facebook.
Get rid of Facebook.
Don't have a Twitter. It's awesome. Fun fact, you don't need it to survive.
Surprising, right? Because with all the blackouts that we've had from social media, you would think people will either lose their mind.
I had no idea.
I didn't know till I showed up at the Raider game with my family. They're like, "Oh, I can't post anything," and I was like, "Oh, let me look." And because I was trying to sell a ticket, and I was like, "Oh yeah, it's down."
Yeah,
I didn't care.
I think I tried to go on Instagram, and I was like, maybe the app's messed up.
Yeah,
and like just called it a day. And I was like, all right, whatever.
Yeah,
and moved on.
I remember people were like messaging me at 8:00, like, "Oh, you're selling one ticket." And I was like, "Oh yeah, it was like 5 hours ago, dude.
Sorry,
like, the game's already happening.
The game's over."
Yeah.
But But on a side note, have you heard about the CrossFit Health Initiative or the new? That's not what it's called.
Oh,
but what's it called? What is it called? Their whole like kind of like doctor thing that they're trying to do.
no, I haven't heard of anything about that. Is it sponsored by Monster?
Sugar-free
Monster?
CrossFit Precision Care.
Okay. Oh, you know what? I take that back. I think I saw a post and then never followed up.
Yeah, so it's I'm interested to learn about this a little bit more as it kind of pops up. So it's kind of this bridging the gap of like healthcare from the minds through like the lens of like CrossFit's like methodology of health. So it's not open to the public yet. It's still like within its like beta program. I guess in a couple states they're going to start opening up through like telehealth right now, which is just online like doctor visits and stuff.
Yeah.
But it's similar to essentially it's going to be kind of like a blood test. They do a DNA saliva test as well. Get it all tested out, and then you'll actually be paired up with an MD who is kind of within the health and fitness scope, and then you get paired with like a health coach as well, to be able to then kind of go through like lifestyle, nutritional, like whatever pieces or factors need to be like implemented to like help you live a healthier, better lifestyle. I've heard rumors about this kind of existing or potentials of it existing. I think the person that I was listening to talk about was Julie Fouché.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say when you mentioned like hooking you up with like an MD who's in the line, I was like, the first thought was like, oh, it's Julie Fouché for sure.
So I think she, from my understanding, is that she played a pretty big role in like building this part up. But anyway, it's not a replacement to like your actual like primary care physician or anything like that. It's more of like considered an adjunct. So the idea is that you would still have your primary care physician, but you can use this in addition to as like supplemental stuff, given that most MDs are going to look at you and be like, here's what the clinical things say, kind of irrelevant or regardless of what the hell. God damn it, Siri. That's why Google's better. But kind of regardless of kind of what the clinical, like the quote unquote clinical things are, because that's kind of like, largely just a big broad swath of the population.
Right.
And is going to get a little bit, precision care, get a little bit more precise into the individual, again, going through this, through the lens of like people who live healthy life or are attempting to live healthy lifestyles.
Right.
Through like health, fitness, exercise, etc. That's it.
That sounds pretty awesome, pretty unique, especially to the individual, right? Because you got to do the DNA swab, the blood test, and all this other stuff, and they pick you with somebody. I imagine they're not just gonna Tumblr it and be like, "Oh, you're going to Dr. MD." Like, it's probably somebody who has more field experience or experience with that specific, let's say, body type, like what mesomorph or whatever, right? They'll have like
the like phenotype.
Sorry, yeah, like so, like those doctors will be like, okay, like they want a healthier lifestyle to lose weight, or they have certain diseases. This doctor specializes with this, and they also are in that fitness world. I feel like that's more where they're going versus like how we do a primary healthcare. You kind of just get tossed in the ring, like, oh, this is your doctor. Select from one of 300, and then maybe they'll see you in 7 months.
Yeah, well, so they didn't get into that. It was a pretty short little interview that I was listening to. So it's all going to be people that are experienced. They're all going to be MDs who are experienced with CrossFit specifically. So I don't know if they're going to be just like GPs, or like kind of what you said, if there's going to be any sort of like variance with like within like specialties of people who also do CrossFit, right? So you got like a rheumatologist that also does CrossFit, maybe. I don't know if it's going to go that far.
I think that'd be cool to eventually see, but probably in the beginning, it's probably would be like, all right, we're going to hook you up with somebody.
Yeah, so I think this is in partnership with another company that's kind of already doing this. Okay. Though the CrossFit one is going to be obviously a little more biased towards like the CrossFit concepts of health.
Yeah.
So I don't know all the specifics. I just kind of briefly listened to something. And I was like, oh, that's intriguing. Like, we'll talk about it real quick.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm curious to see. Hopefully, cool stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. That'd be really that'd be a new interesting take on healthcare.
Well, it has to get better. Like our healthcare system largely blows. I think the U.S. is pretty low rated for the most part.
Yeah.
So I think I think it can only hopefully only go up. But I think there with people like that are looking now into more, because I believe Julie Fouché is more on the functional medicine side, if I remember correctly. So we're kind of starting to see this like functional medicine, which is kind of this holistic, not in the sense of like herbs and spices type of thing, not some like Chinese, like not herbal Chinese medicine type of thing, but the looking at the whole system. To be able to paint the picture to then like begin to break down like other factors, right? So you can look at stuff like sleep. You can look at stuff as like food, exercise, as it affects the human condition as a whole, and then be able to kind of and then continue to break down parts to build everything up,
right?
Kind of like that the inside tracker thing that I was telling you about today.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah.
I'm very intrigued to see what that looks like.
Yeah,
which we'll talk about as
seems like it'll be a lot of fun for you because
yes.
I know you like all that fun breakdown and bio body chemistry shit.
Yeah, 100%. I'm very intrigued. I'm very very intrigued to see what it's at, as well as what my inner age is. Yeah,
your inner age, probably like 16.
No, there's no way.
18 maybe.
No, I'm probably. I'm gonna guess. I would guess that my inner age is probably older than my real age.
Really?
Yeah, probably a couple years, I would guess. But we'll see.
38.
38?
Yeah.
Hopefully not.
What? You want it more?
No. Hopefully younger. I was thinking maybe like 33, 34, something like that.
So you'd be my age.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a little bit older.
So what does that put me at? 37? 38?
I don't know.
12?
14.
14 probably.
I am 14. But yeah, I'll definitely want to talk about that. Kind of talk through that stuff.
When you get that stuff back, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, because I got to do the test. They'll look at it, give me all my stuff, and then I have a consult. Or it's like a 45-minute call with their one of their like dietitians.
Yeah. To
kind of talk through all that stuff that's going on. So I'm curious, very curious to see what they have to say, kind of what that says about me.
Mm-hmm.
And whether or not I'm going to recommend it to my clientes.
I'm telling you, they're going to say you're an alien.
You're like, your blood. I've never seen anything like it.
So many metachlorians.
Your power level is over 9,000. Hey, did you ever watch Dragon Ball?
Of course.
Have you watched Super?
Not in a minute, no. I haven't. I think the last things I watched were the Cell games.
Oh my god, that's Dragon Ball Z.
I know. I'm telling you, I haven't watched it in a minute.
So you finished like the Android saga?
Yes.
Okay.
I think 16, 17, and 18, right? I know there were two more later. I don't think I've got to that.
No.
Like Dr. Robotnik or whatever the fuck his name was.
Dr. Robotnik is
I know
Sonic.
that's from Sonic, but the R&R doctor or
the Red Ribbon.
Red Ribbon doctor. Yeah.
It's the Red Ribbon Army.
Yeah.
Is it Dr. Giro? I think is what it is.
No clue.
Yeah. Did you ever watch GT?
With Baby Trunks and Goten? Or Kid Trunks?
Yeah, Kid Trunks is in it.
Yeah. I think I've seen a couple episodes here and there, but
like the Dark Star Dragon Balls.
I haven't followed the story. I have a lot of anime to catch up on.
Technically, well, a lot of people hate GT because GT is technically not in canon.
David hates it. He will sit there and talk with you all day about it.
I think it's great. I don't know why people hate on it. Like, it's just what is there to hate? It's all fucking ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
Yeah.
And then, but you got to watch Super because Super is like a continuation from like.
That's what David says.
Super is a continuation from Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. It creates celestial concepts.
They have gods, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the one with the dog god or the cat god or whatever the hell fuck he is.
Yeah, it's a cat.
Yeah.
It's the I forget his name, but he's the
Remus.
No, you're thinking of like the Egyptian name. It's not an Egyptian name. He's but so they have the gods of destruction.
Yes. Yeah.
Is what they are. But then there's like the supreme entity that exists, which is like a kid. It's weird.
Oh yeah, I think David told me about that.
Yeah, it's like this little like alien thing. There's like an old Sonic game that was for like Dreamcast. Yeah, going back.
Jesus.
There's a Sonic game
thinking Sega.
for Sega Dreamcast. And it they had these like little like blob things, and it kind of looks like that. That's what I thought it was at first, and I was like, what is happening? Man, Sonic Legend or not Sonic Legends? I don't remember. It was a cool game.
Yeah.
What is going on?
Siri loves you.
No, now it's opening up iTunes.
Oh, see, Siri loves you. Wants you to listen to music.
No, Siri. Anyway, you should watch Super because it's awesome. And I only bring it up because I just watched a video about one of the characters, this guy named Jiren. It's just awesome. It's all awesome. It's so good. It's like a final battle to the duel. There's a multiverse. It's great.
Jesus.
Weird celestial planetary sized Dragon Balls. Watch it. Come on.
Rub my big old balls.
Only if they're chefs.
And it's
chocolate salty balls. Exactly.
Trey Parker, join us.
Yeah, come on our show. No, first we need our other person.
Oh, that's right. Which we won't say out loud.
Can't say it until it happens.
No, Siri, we're not going to say it.
I don't know what is going on. I have a feeling it's got to be something to do with this.
Probably the cables, yeah.
Whatever. I'm not pressing anything.
No, I don't. Yeah.
Whatever. All right. Well, anything else you want to add or chat about?
That's all I got for today.
Cool. All right. Then, Senor Eric, where can people find us?
You guys can find us at our Instagram at another_rep_podcast, or you can email us at anotherreppodcast@gmail.com.
You can listen to us wherever you listen to your podcasts, as well as the YouTubes if you want to also just listen to it because there's no video on that. You can hit us up on the hotline if you got questions, comments, concerns, and you can occasionally watch us play games on Twitch.
So far, Ryan, because he hasn't
and
given
by
me a
that
Twitch account yet.
I'll send it to you now. All right, bye.
Bye.